All right, it says here that it's live streaming on Facebook. All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thank you, everyone. Please note in the minutes that Councillor Daniel Allen is absent with regrets. Item number 2, land acknowledgement. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are on the traditional lands of the Acadia First Nations, part of Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Item number 3, additions or deletions to the agenda of January the 13th, 2022. Councillor Durkee, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's actually not an addition or deletion. It's just a spelling correction. Sorry. 7.2.2, I believe, should be uniform assessment and not uniform. Teacher Durkee, sorry.
No, that's quite all right. That's a good catch. It shows you read it. Is there any other errors or omissions? CAO Brooks.
Mr. Chair, I think 7.1.1, an email just came in over the dinner hour that might go with that, an additional request to accompany that initiative. I think I got a note from you that you did want to kind of raise that during that discussion.
Yes, I received that today at 10:35. I'll pull it up here. It was from Russell Gross in regards to the African Heritage Month, the 2022 virtual launch. They were asking about putting forward something on January the 18th in regards to a virtual recording. So yes, I'm not sure if you can add that on the agenda, or has it already been added, Madam CEO?
No, not formally, Mr. Chair. We would need the leave of council to do that, and I can circulate the document by email right now if council does wish to add it to the agenda. It's time sensitive, council. That's why I'm raising it.
Yep, I see consensus on that. All right, is there any other additions or deletions or corrections to the agenda as circulated? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Nick Hilton. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Patty Durkee. Motion on the floor to approve the agenda as circulated with that little correction. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. You might have seen me jumping around because I was looking for both of my voting cards. All right. Approval of the agenda is finished, and if there's any declarations of conflict of interest during any of these agenda items, please notify me and we'll have it recorded in the meeting minutes. Item number 6, presentations. We have with us today the esteemed Director of Recreation, Mr. Frank Grant. I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Warden Cunningham, and Happy New Year to everyone. Thanks for having me. I wish we were meeting in person, but the virus is back at us and got us at home in basements, and my toes are kind of numb right now, but I'll survive. And as we turn the calendar to another year, just thought every time January rolls around, I always think of February, because coming up in, I think, February the 5th will mark my 17th year as director for Yarmouth Recreation. So starting to show a little bit of gray after 17 years. But anyway, I circulated a report. I'm not gonna go item by item through everything, but I'm just gonna go through and highlight some of the things and leave some time for some questions. But if folks wanna ask questions during the presentation, I'm fine with that. I'm trying to see everyone, so just let me know and I'll stop and we'll chat. So thanks again for having me. Just wanted to commend council on the Lake Milo Active Transportation Project. I'm super excited. Residents are super excited. My program staff are super excited that you know, this project's moving forward, and we'll have that beautiful trail along the Milo stretch. We'll have some increased infrastructure through Hebron Dayton area. We all know that walking is the #1 activity in Canada for all, people of all ages. And we're super excited that that project is getting close to coming before council for approval. So it's been a great experience, and looking forward to moving that forward over the next few years. With everything going on, gathering restrictions have thrown a wrinkle at us. But John Darcy is still looking after our 2 facilities that we have rentals in, and some of those rentals are still happening. At the Rotary Center in Lake Milo, we are under a 50% capacity restriction. So we do have some activities in small numbers that are happening. Aerobics, martial arts, dance. Even though that some of our users have opted out and not continued with their activities just to see how things were going, and hoping that restrictions will lift a little bit towards the end of this month. But we still have buildings going and activities happening, even though they are in smaller limits. So John is busy taking care of our buildings and making sure heat is on, and plowing and clearing and making sure that things are all set for those activities. With schools opening on Monday, we are planning to get back into some school gyms. A little bit different scenarios there. In school gyms, for most sports activities, the gathering restrictions are groups of 10 or cohorts of 10. So it is making things a little bit interesting to try to figure out how we can get 30 pickleball players into the gym and following the restrictions. Minor basketball, for example, are looking at having 2 cohorts of 10. So split the court, have one group on each end of the court. So it is frustrating, I will admit, but we are trying to continue, and we see the importance of trying to keep some of those activities going. One of the things that we've seen lots of activity on is our 2 trails that we maintain. Horseshoe River Trail and Tikpok Trail have been used heavily, and I'm assuming that people are going for nature walks just because their regular activities are canceled, or maybe they've are not able to do certain things and are looking for new experiences. So trails are a great thing for walking and exploring, and I'll mention a few things with some of the things that Sarah LeBlanc's working on that we're trying to incorporate with our nature trails. And the other thing is just one other thing I wanted to mention with John. We do have a storage room that we loan out cross-country skis and snowshoes, and we have been loaning some of that stuff out. We do have some loaner kits for different activities as well. So John is working on trying to make some racks for our cross-country skis, just to make it easier and I guess a bit more tidy in the storage room for grabbing 3 sets of skis and poles and boots and that sort of thing. Sarah LeBlanc, our community recreation coordinator, she held the Yarmouth Trail Walking Challenge, and the final plans are going out for that. And again, a great participation rate. I think this is the 3rd walking challenge that we've had, and we've heard lots of positive things. We started out with the Yarmouth to Yarmouth, Maine walking challenge, and I think a lot of those people, if they're not still participating with our challenges, they're still out walking on their own. And I know that we feel it with one of our staff, Mike Surratt, is one of our champion walkers. I think he hit the 2 million step mark a few weeks ago. So Mike is very active, taking part in the challenges, and I know Sarah's very proud that she's got a few people off the couch and got them on a more of a fitness, healthy living type of guide. Sarah is also doing some guided trail walks on Tuesdays. It's outside activity in small groups. And she's still assisting with Mariners on Main operations. And that's one thing that we've tried since Mariners on Main has opened. We have tried whatever we can to help advertise, promote, loan equipment, find crash mats, do whatever we can to help support Duram and his team at the Mariners on Main. And Sarah is a qualified seniors fitness coordinator, and she's doing seated fitness courses for seniors. And those are still going on, and small groups, which is good because it does meet with the restriction guidelines, but we're continuing on with supporting some of those things. And Sarah and Tanya Bain are both working on a healthy lifestyle challenge where we're challenging people to just change their habits. You know, January is always a good year for people to be challenged to try to get healthier, lose some weight, change things up. So we're doing some online challenges around that stuff. And our partner association that is great for outdoor activity is Friends of Ellenwood Park. And we work closely with the volunteers with that group. And they've had some great days for cross-country skiing. Then we had some snow, and then it melted, and then looks like snows are coming again. So, but if there's no snow, it's still a great place to hike through the park or to take the trail. And after the Bell program, consulting with Maple Grove Education Center, after the Bell is a program after school on Wednesdays for females at Maple Grove. We are planning to start that back up on January the 26th. Jillian Camo, our community engagement officer, she's the admin backbone of the office with all the meetings and groups. She's the one that deals with them for payments and bookings and time changes. So as I mentioned, a lot of that stuff is still going on, but even the activities that are not happening, Jillian is in constant contact with our clients and potential clients as far as activities. The one thing I can say is that we're not taking any activities of a social nature. So we often have users holding wedding showers or baby showers or birthday parties. The restrictions don't allow us to hold social gatherings. So only activities of a physical nature is what we're looking at the time being. And Jillian's on a number of subcommittees as well. She mentioned in the report there, YSMRA is our Yarmouth Shelburne Recreation Association. And they have subcommittees, and they're looking at quality of life data, which is provincial data, which helps drive our work and research and that sort of thing. And Jillian, also being our previous active living coordinator, she's been very helpful in training and onboarding our new active living coordinator, Tanya Bain. And Tanya, just like Sarah and Jillian, when they both started with us 2 years ago, started a couple of weeks in the office, and then all of a sudden we're working from home. So Tanya's been a trooper. We collaborate a lot online, and so do all of our counterparts, and she's doing the best she can with the situation that we're in with COVID. So lots of orientation, lots of check-ins with our provincial partner, and she's hitting the ground running with some social media campaigns, workplace challenges, and assisting Sarah with some of the winter activity stuff. As far as our budget to date, we show revenues of 91,643. Our budget is 149,984. I'm not sure if we're going to hit that target. We had a full plan for our budget this year. I'm thinking that what we've delivered is probably close to 75 or 80% of that. So we're doing okay in some areas, and unfortunately we're not doing so well in some of the areas we had anticipated. Expenses, we're showing expenses of 543,168, and our expense budget for the year is 771,984. So we've still got 3 months left of our budget. Future projects. So I admit we're a little bit slow on some of these renovations, but we are planning on some renovations at the Rotary Center. Looking through, I guess one of the things that once we started with some of the plans there, we have done quite a bit of work involved around our accessibility strategy. So some of those plans have kind of been tweaked just with some of the information that's come out of some of the accessibility plans. So we are tweaking those a little bit and relooking at things to make sure that counters are certain heights and doors swing certain ways, and that we're not going to do some renovations and turn around, have to make some adjustments again to comply with accessibility. And the big thing that we're excited about is that we're planning for an overall department recreation strategic plan, and we're hoping to launch that in the next fiscal year in April. And we're excited because I don't believe in my 17 years we've had a strategic plan for our department. We've had physical activity plans, we've had active transportation plans, but we've never had an overall department plan that includes everything. So kind of excited about that. Just a couple other notes that I wanted to mention is that we've been working on some things with community use of schools and agreements, and this is regionally in Yarmouth and Shelburne counties, and we have included Digby as well. And the issue is with all the schools that we deal with within Tri-County, many schools have different arrangements for community use of schools. So we're looking at addressing some of those issues, trying to get some uniformity around agreements with schools, trying to standardize some things. And just this week, we did get approved for a grant to do a little bit of I guess a research or a forecasting of how we can make community use of school arrangements better. So we're looking at, we received $25,000 regionally, which will look at 5 community schools in the region, and 2 of those are in our region. So we'll be receiving $10,000 for Meadowfields Community School and Yarmouth Elementary School to target community use of schools and look at the fees that are charged and see if we can make things increase participation by subsidizing some of those time slots. New recreation software package. This is something the entire municipality has been exploring. We've met with some of the companies, and with the rec department, I know we are really looking forward to a new package. We do most of our business now online with online registration, and we are using Google Sheets, which can be time consuming with transferring data, and so we're excited about looking at some new software and having some neat tools at our fingertips that will make things easier for registration and payments and reporting and all that stuff. This is one that's been on the books for a while. MobiMats. We unsuccessfully tried to launch our MobiMats at Fort Maitland Beach. The tide, we put them out, and when the tide came in, they were floating as soon as the tide came in and out on them a few times. So even the Lands and Forests made an extension on the ramp to make the transfer down onto the mat better. I think a few months ago, that whole bottom section has been ripped away by the tides. So we've looked into another option. Ellenwood Park is another terrific site. Those familiar with the park, the lifeguards set up in the middle section of the beach, which is kind of in between the public beach and the campground beach. And Lands and Forests have already done some prep work preparing the site for the Moby Mat. So we're excited that with those renovations that we'll have the Moby Mats and the Moby Chair available as soon as the lifeguards start at Milo, at Ellenwood next summer. And our next meeting of our Recreation Committee is February the 2nd. We've had a few meetings, which has been good. Lots of good conversation, and the new municipal reps have been very engaged, and looking forward to working with them over the next year. I think that's everything that I had on my report.
If I could just interrupt, sorry, Frank. I just got a note from Warden Cunningham that he would like the deputy warden to assume the chair. He's had to step away.
Okay. So is there any question? Is there any questions at all with my report? I know I may have gone a little bit, but anything at all?
Ms. Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two things. One is I'm really happy that we were able to come up with an alternative to the use of the Moby mats. The one positive thing is if anybody's going to use that wheelchair, at least the water's going to be a lot warmer than at Port Maitland Beach. Too bad, but you know what? We had to make accommodations, so they were made. And thank you so much for working on that for us. And the other point, it's funny, I was going to ask about this strategic plan. So I'm happy to hear that you're going to be working on one of those, and I look forward to seeing the direction of the Recreation Department. I also am happy to hear that you are working with Mariners on Main. I think there should be some close connections between the Mariners Center, Mariners on Main, and Recreation going into the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of Frank? Oh, yeah, Councilor Ober.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Frank, just 4 things, and they're going to be quick because Councilor Durkee touched on a couple of them. The strategic plan, excellent. That was on my my ask was going to be, you know, where do we see recreation going in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years? And I know COVID has played has had a huge impact on what you have been able to do. And I think that, you know, I would feel that we as a municipality and, you know, supporting partners need to look at how we can continue to live with COVID, but also keep our recreation, you know, up and running within the parameters. Anyway, so that's good. The Horseshoe River Trail, I know you had one of our residents reach out to you with a concern about vandalism. Can you speak to what do you see, like what kinds of things can be done? Is there anything we can do other than, I'll just let you talk, sorry.
Yeah, and vandalism is always with us. It's unfortunate, but it's always with us. The last bit of the photos that a citizen had sent in was a vehicle doing some donuts in the lower parking lot, and I think just kind of I guess unsightly types of materials that are being left on site from cars that are parking and doing maybe some illegal activity, I guess is a good way to put it. So, you know, whenever we have issues with the vehicles coming into the park to not go for a walk, and we catch them, staff are often yelled at, swore at. So our recourse is to contact our local RCMP and just ask them to do more patrols when they're in the area. RCMP are always very polite, but they're honest. They often tell me the same answer. if we are not on a call and we're in the Hebron Dayton area, yes, we can go through and do a check through the park. But if we're on a call, we're not going to have time to do that. So in my opinion, from council's perspective, if there's anything that council can do, if there are counselors around the table with our RCMP, and just mention that, you know, there are lots of dark places around the recreation complex. Increased patrols is what, you know, I always like to comment on, because even if a staff vehicle is in the parking lot, if a staff will, like if John Darcy, for example, if someone comes in and goes down into the lower parking lot and John sees them, by the time he gets in his truck and drives down the check to see what's going on, they're driving out of the park because they're probably smoking or wanting to do something where they don't want to be seen. So four-wheelers are in the park a lot, and they're the ones doing the donuts and spreading rocks on the grass and making ruts and all that sort of stuff. But you know, whenever we have those things happen, we contact RCMP and ask them to do more patrols. You know, I'll admit John has had altercations with people. I don't like my staff to be in a position where they may be in a dangerous position, but John has tried to politely ask people to stop what they're doing or ask them why they're causing damage, and they don't think it's a big deal. And if they're on a wheeler and it's a young person, John's talking to them, they'll usually just speed off and spray rocks at his truck. And it's an issue. I'm not sure how, other than, you know, we could put a gate up, but then that limits the activity for families and people that do want to go and walk or use the park for good purposes. But
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And two other things. I'm glad that the Moby Mats are going to be able to be used within our municipality at Ellenwood. And I know that I'm glad that the department is talking about, you know, doing some adjustments to the location at Ellenwood, because it isn't all, I think the Moby Mats are great to be there in the Moby chair, but I know from walking through there on a regular basis, the accessibility from where I think that they're going to go just to get from the parking area to the Moby Mat, you know, so I'm hoping that their renovations will address that. And good news that the snowshoe rentals and snowshoe loaning program and the ski rental program is still ongoing. So that's important. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hurlbert. Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two questions. The budget that's represented in your report, is that your entire budget, or is that Modi share, or
That's our entire budget.
your budget?
So
It's
so
cost share between us and the town.
It's just a quick snippet of our expenses and revenue for where we're at as of the date I printed off the report. But that's
No,
our
that's
full
great.
budget.
My question was more as if it was ours or if it's a mix, because we cost share with the town, correct?
We cost share, yeah. So
Yeah.
roughly what you can see would be the municipal portion would be the budgeted amount. Our expenses budget is 771, and if you minus the 149 that we had in revenues, I think the municipality's portion is around 330,000.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. And in just relation to the park and security, do we have any, because now our maintenance building is there, which would have Wi-Fi and power and stuff. Do we have any type of security, i.e. cameras in the park, anything like that? Is that something that would be beneficial that we should look into? Because John stopping them, you know, is one thing, but being able to provide a license plate or photos is another for the RCMP to follow up on, and being able to put a sign up that says that the park is now under surveillance full-time surveillance may be helpful.
With the renovations and with Public Works being there, we do definitely have a larger staff presence, which has been helpful. We have talked about security cameras. In the past, we have rented security cameras and set them up from time to time. And I guess what RCMP are telling me is that oftentimes, even if we catch somebody red-handed on camera, it has to be a perfectly clear picture of a car so that they can get a license plate, or if it's an individual, that it has to be at such a resolution where they can totally prove that person. So anything that we would be looking at for cameras would have to be at a high resolution, which gets quite costly. But there is some neat products out there. I was just looking at home security type of things where there's some pretty neat stuff that we may be able to get relatively cheap and have them set up in different places from time to time. So the one that actually the RCMP were at Milo getting some footage from the cameras that we have there. And while we were downloading the footage for them, the officer was saying, "Have you seen this?" And he pulls his phone out and he said, "I'm having work done at home and I can check to see what the contractors are doing, from his phone." And he said, "I can even talk to them." So, and he said it was relatively cheap cameras app to your phone. So if we had something like that, that may be something that we could set up down in the lower corner. Well, I guess access to power in a large park like that, that's one of my big issues.
Even cameras at the trailhead or the entrance to the park, and any place a ATV might be able to enter would go a long way, I think. And I think technology's reached the point where you can get reasonably high definition cameras for a reasonable price. Carry one in my pocket. Yeah, I would look into that if I were you guys, and I would support that.
All right, anything else?
Additional questions? Thank you, Mr. Grant. Excellent presentation and questions. And I just see that our warden popped on the screen, so I'll transfer the role of chair back to our warden, John Cunningham. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Deputy Warden, for taking over. Something come up. So if there's no more questions for Frank, thank you very much, Frank, for having that with us. All right, moving on to item number 7, correspondence for action. The first one there, 7.1.1, African Nova Scotia Affairs support for municipal proclamations of African Heritage Month of 2022. And also, I had received an email from a Mr. Russell Gross at 10:25 this morning. And it's requesting that the municipality of District of Yarmouth participate in the province Nova Scotia Virtual African Heritage Month Lodge for 2022. I do believe you all received that via email, and I apologize to anyone that's watching this via the internet. This is something that I did not catch until early this afternoon, just before the council meeting. So you all see that in there in your package. So what is the wishes of council? Deputy Warden.
Yes, perhaps we could have our CAO just for the public's consideration, give us a brief description of the memorandum and the contents of the letter.
Sure. So thank you, Mr. Chair. So through the AMA listserv, a memorandum was circulated in December about an opportunity to work with the African Affairs Office in Nova Scotia, as well as the group known as, I want to make sure I get it right, as African Heritage Month Information Network, and to continue to improve and promote the activities around the province that recognize February as African Heritage Month. So in the package and in the memo, there were some tools and resources to support council if they'd like to have an event where they would read a proclamation. There's a reference to a possible funding stream there, and there was a deadline in December. I'm not sure that that's a hard deadline. And if council has an appetite to undertake an event, we'll certainly, reach out and see if we can get some support through that program to help support that event. And then, so to go with that piece of correspondence, which is attached to your agenda, there's also the late correspondence that's requesting an official do a video recording of, and I think hopefully you've all got the email, a video recording of a script that's provided, which recognizes February is recognized internationally as African Heritage Month, and then there's a script basically outlining a resolution of council and proclaiming the month, which the ask is that a municipal official would record that, and we would submit it by January 18th. So it could be part of the provincial virtual event and shared that day. So it's two prongs. It's an information package around encouraging council to make a proclamation and to do that through an event. And then the other piece is recording a message to be included in the provincial event.
Councillor Sherry Hurlbert.
Thanks. I have a question before I make a motion, or should I just make the motion and then ask the question?
Ask the question first. I actually have something to ask the CEO after you're done.
So my question would be, because CAO Brooks's point that she wasn't sure if the deadline for funding was a hard deadline or not, because we've missed that obviously. But I guess I'm wondering, even though we don't have anything in our municipal budget approved for this year, if there's discretionary funds, maybe discretionary isn't the word, funds that we could use to have some kind of event, even if it was virtual. And I know that we do have our new flagpole and, possibility of a flag raising on a particular day. So I guess I would make the motion that the municipal recommend to council, but then I think about timelines. So recommend to council that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth participate, organize an event to honor and reflect on the month.
You making that a motion, Councillor?
Yes.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Nick Hilton. Okay, is there any discussion on that motion? Before I open up the floor, I do have a question for the CAO, and I do believe it's pertaining to this, and it's regards to proclamations. I've received an email from both of our neighboring municipalities in regards to making proclamations. And the town of Yarmouth, I had mentioned that they do not do proclamations, and the warden of Argyle had also mentioned that he doesn't recall doing that. So my question to the CEO is have we ever made proclamations of this type before? To my knowledge, I don't believe we ever have.
Right. So by practice, not by policy, we have not done proclamations. Having said that, that doesn't preclude council from having an event and recognizing the month. And as Councillor Hurlbert pointed out, incorporating the flag and doing a flag raising, with respect to some modest expenses that could be around an event. I'm fairly certain, a couple of $100 is there in your PR budget or somewhere where we could definitely do an event. I think you're quite right, Councillor Hurlbert. We don't know what the pandemic numbers are going to look like, and we would want to plan. So it could be that it's, council live on site doing something that we live stream or something like that. It'll have to definitely be COVID friendly this year, unfortunately, but I'm confident that we could plan an event absent a proclamation and still recognize the importance of the month. So, depending on the wishes of council, I think we have some flexibility and we can achieve, what you want as a group.
Councillor Nick Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, I agree. Like, I'm all in favor of supporting, the recommendation. I think, later on the agenda, we have the discussion around the diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, or the proposed committee. I think we're just at the beginning stages of kind of realizing who we want to be as a council, and I support the flag raising and maybe a small gathering that's COVID friendly, and that being the start. And once we've put that committee together, then we can have the further discussions about what that might look like next year. So it's a beginning. It might not be everything that we've been asked to do, but it's a beginning, and I think it's important to know that that's okay as well. So Jenny, can you read the proposed motion just so we know what we're voting on?
Sure. To recommend to regular council that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth participate and organize an event to honor and reflect on African Heritage Month.
So it doesn't really speak to the proclamation, so we can do that and have further discussions instead of something right away about what we want to do in the future, and maybe have some committee input as well.
Yes, you're absolutely quite right, Councillor Hilton. We have item 9.3 coming up in regards to the terms of reference for the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee, and this is a good example of why that council would be benefit to the municipality district of Yarmouth. Is there any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none. Madam CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I could ask a question of clarification to Councillor Hurlbert. In your motion, was your intent to include the video recording to be sent to the province for their virtual event, or were you planning to deal with that separately?
That wasn't in my thought
Okay.
process, but
So we can make a separate motion maybe if
Yes.
council has an appetite for that.
because that one has to be done before we go to regular council. So I'm not sure how we address that, right? Because my motion was to talk about this or approve it at regular council, but the video recording has to happen before regular council meets.
Yep. So if council has an appetite to do the video recording with leave of council, we could go into a quick council meeting just to approve that and get it done and get it submitted by the 18th of January, if council has an appetite to participate in that piece as well.
Deputy Warden.
Yeah, do we need to be that formal about it? Can we just have rather than going into a separate council meeting, can we just have the councilors indicate their support of doing the video message and submitting it to the province? Seems like an administrative type thing almost. Very important, but having said that.
So Mr. Chair, through you to the Deputy Warden, if I'm working on your council procedural policy, so I'm really getting into the weeds on it. And I'm thinking back on provisions in that a decision by consensus at committee of the whole is deemed to be a decision of council. So if you decide that by consensus, then we can just move forward.
Okay, there is an original motion on the floor. Is anyone have any more comments or questions or clarification? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. So there was discussion here in regards to doing a video and sending it off before the 18th. What is the wishes of council? Councillor Hilton?
Just for clarification, is the video the proclamation request, or is that two separate things? I don't have the email, so just the attachment to.
So the proposed script is a proclamation. It doesn't mean that the District of Yarmouth would submit a proclamation. The District of Yarmouth could submit a statement as opposed to a proclamation, depending on where you're at.
Well, I don't see any issue with either or. I'm just not sure if council is prepared. We haven't had a whole lot of time to digest again what we want to see, and we don't want to set an expectation without proper consideration that we're going to do anything ongoing. So I'm open to whatever council thinks, I guess.
Deputy Warden?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think that it's a good idea that we either make a proclamation or something that or make a statement by video about African Heritage Month and our support of it. I'm okay certainly if everybody else with tasking the CAO with providing direction around that and perhaps working with our warden to get that message complete. It wouldn't have to be the warden that does it directly, but something that's appropriate and helpful to the provincial effort to recognize African Heritage Month, which is February. So if we can get consensus, I think that's a good way forward.
So consensus on that? I see consensus all around the table. Madam CEO, is that what you need? All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is 7.1.2, Coldest Night of the Year 2022 sponsorship. Deputy Warden.
Yes, and Shift House is a tremendously important support for youth in our community, and we know many people are struggling in the community, and this is an organization that really does provide a lot of necessary support to our youth. So I'll move that the Municipality District of Yarmouth. Just look, sorry, before I make that motion. We're going to be, through you, Mr. Chair, to the CEO, we're going to be okay recommending this to council in terms of timelines.
Yes, we are. Yep. I think maybe what you, yeah, because it's in February. The event is in February.
Okay, so Yarmouth, don't make a donation of $500 to the event, to organize the event, and also undertake between now and next council meeting to have the CEO come with a recommended team for that event, a walking team, I believe that's it. So I'll make that a motion.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Sherry Hurlbert. Is there any discussion on that motion? I do have a question before I call for the question. Councillor Hurlbert, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and to the other councillors and our public. I just want to say that I've been the team captain for a team at Burge campus for as long as Shift and the Tri-County Women's Center have been doing this particular project, and it's I find it very rewarding as a team captain. We've had between 7 and 11, 12 people every year. And I'm happy to say that the Burge campus team has been one of the highest team earners, but I think that the municipality, I guess I envision counselors, staff. Last year it was a virtual walk. So in the past, we've actually met at Burge campus and we walk as a group. Last year, we took it upon ourselves to walk alone or with a small contingent of people with COVID rules. So I think that, I will support the municipality's team, but my heart is near and dear to the Burge team as the team captain, but I will support and participate however I can. But I think it is an important and worthwhile, and all the money that is raised from this event will go to the Tri-County Women's Center and Shift House. So they split it equally. So it does stay in our community, which is great.
Councillor Hilton.
Thanks. So I too participated last year and it's a great cause. So I guess my question is to the CAO. The motion doesn't speak to where we're donating the money do we need to decide that? I see. And do we have any funds left in our grants to organizations for the current budgeted year?
So, Mr. Chair, through you to Councillor Hilton. So it would, I would default to our contingency under grants to community groups for sure. You're quite right, Councillor Hilton. And yeah, I think we have the $500 left. I mean, we've been picking away at that contingency, but I did do just a quick check and a quick check-in, not chicken, check-in with Greg and his team today, and I think we've got the money there.
Perfect. So, further to that, I would encourage you to put that out to staff and all counselors, and maybe we can see if we can double or triple that amount through donations as well, personal donations. So as a team, so anyone's welcome to attend, but let's see what we can do to get to their total number of, or their total goal of $32,000. So thank you.
All right, is there any more questions from councilors? That I have one before I call for the question. This is a question for the CAO, I guess. Have we not already supported the Tri-County Women's Center in regards to funding
And Shift House.
and Shift House?
Yep, so both organizations are recipients of grants through Grants to Organizations.
I do realize that those grants were not allocated to this. It was more or less for programming and stuff like that. My concern is it's the double ask. I really wish that when we're asked for grants to consider fundraising and stuff like that. So basically we're funding them twice in the same year. I'm concerned with that personally. I have no problem with going out and signing some sponsorship sheets to participate in the walk. I have no issue with that. My issue was moving forward with the additional grant request, which is on top of what we already allocated for this fiscal year. That's my concern. And on that concern alone, I would not be in support of the 500 of putting $500 of grant money towards this. It's my opinion. And it's always been concerning to me that of different groups asking for operational funding, and then they're asking for capital funding, and then the other funding on top of that. So my question is where do we stop? We don't have a limited amount of money in the municipality district of Yarmouth. Yes, we do have some in contingency, but we don't know what's going to come up before this fiscal year ends either. I do believe that we should be participating in the walk, absolutely. But in regards to the grant request that's included in this motion, I cannot support that. I see two people with their hands up, and I always seem to gather reactions whenever I speak. So the first one I seen was Councillor Patty Durkee, then Councillor Nick Hilton.
Sorry, just took me a couple minutes to unmute. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Greg. Greg, do you know the numbers of what we've contributed already?
I'm sorry, what was this topic area you're talking about? I wasn't
We're
listening.
talking about how much money we have already given to the Tri-County Women's Center / Shift House from our grants.
I cannot tell you that without looking at right away. Whatever was granted to them in the during this budget session for 21-22 would have been delivered to them. You're probably going to be here for a few minutes longer, so why don't you just give me a few minutes? I can probably find that in a couple and get back to you. How's that?
That's a problem because we currently have a motion on the floor.
It's
Madam CEO.
it's only a recommendation. We can
Yeah.
have those numbers for council.
I think I have, so I have the worksheet that Greg emailed me open in front of me.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to go after.
Yep. So, oh my gosh, something's happening to my eyes when the calendar pages get turned off here. So $3,000 was the contribution to the Tri-County Women's Center, which happened outside of the grant process. And I'm looking for Shift. Not sure.
Just a sec here.
No, I don't see Shift. They might have got a COVID grant. Let me see. Yeah, Shift received a COVID grant of $3,000.
Can
Does that
I,
answer your question, Counselor Durkee?
Yes, thank you very much.
Counselor Hilton, you have the floor.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, I had the same thought, maybe, John, that again, and it has nothing to do with who's applying for the money. It always has to do with how we distribute our grants to organizations. So again, maybe in the next couple of years, it'd be nice to look at how that policy, how that works out. It always seems to be a little bit subjective and not always objective. So, but at the same time, I think this is, well, and we'll see by council if, there's an interest from our staff, and it works out to only $250 extra to two very deserving organizations in our community. So I think for me, the number played a role in factoring in exactly what your concerns were. So I'm still in favor of the 500.
Any more discussion?
Question.
Question being called on the motion. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? A vote is 6-1. The motion is carried. I do wish to have my name recorded. Thank you, council. Good discussion on that. All right, item number 7.2, for information. You have there 3 pieces of information in your package. If there's no questions on any of that, we'll move on. Item number 8, there's no old business. Item number 9, new business. Item 9.1, the sewer bylaw S-084-22. We have with us Darlene LeBlanc and Greg Shea with us, and I do believe that either one of those two or Madam CAO, you will be speaking to this, so I turn over to the floor, whoever wishes to speak.
So I think we're going to do it as a team effort. And I'll kick it off and look to Darlene and Greg to jump in and fill in as appropriate and to help field your questions. So this bylaw, the last time there was significant work done on this bylaw was in 2005. So it's been a while. It's, a significant piece of your legislation. It does generate important revenue for some of the services that you deliver. So a staff team was created to take a review of this bylaw. So Darlene and Greg and Derek, and then some other staff members like Jenny have popped in and out of the review process. And, the mind was to update the bylaw to reflect our current reality. There were some issues with the mechanisms used to levy the fees that didn't align with the current realities of the way properties and buildings are used and built and all those sorts of things. There were some sections and definitions that actually didn't apply to services that we offer. So we wanted to update those. And then we also wanted to create an alignment with any kind of associated legislation. So I think I'll walk through the document that was linked to the agenda and provide some commentary. I think it's important maybe to take the time because it was a thorough review of the bylaw, and the updates were, there were quite a few of them. So what I want to point out in the definitions section is the fact that we've included a definition of commercial, and we've updated the definition of residential, taking them directly from the Assessment Act. That creates alignment in terms of interpretation about what is meant by the category of property, taking it directly from the Assessment Act. Moving on from the definitions section, there were, if you compare this draft bylaw to the 2005 bylaw, there are some housekeeping language updates, and I'm going to highlight kind of the material updates that we're including. So if you move on from the definitions section, you go quite a ways down in the document, all the way down to part 14 and part 15. The municipality of Yarmouth defines spills such that the whole section around notification of discharge or deposits is actually covered off in the section around spills. So we can just delete that section. Provides clarity for people about, why is there a different section? It spills includes the items that section previously addressed, so we can simplify the document for everybody's use. Part 15 was around discharge to storm sewers, and we don't have storm sewers connected to our municipal wastewater collection system. So the document updates delete this section, and they also are meant to delete any references to stormwater in the document. Now, I did catch, it's a big document, and I thought we caught all of the references to stormwater, but I did find 2 more references to storm water after the agenda went live. And I do want to point them out to you, because if you recommend this for first reading, that will get corrected when it's linked to the council agenda. So on page 8, there are 2 more references to stormwater that will get omitted because we don't offer that service, so the bylaw shouldn't speak to it. And continuing on down through the document, we included a piece around notice for appeal. I think Darlene either has had or is waiting to tie up the loose ends on a conversation with the solicitor. And I think in a note to council from the municipal clerk, we indicated that there could be some more updates to this based on feedback from the solicitor. But one piece that we felt important to include was a range of time for people to make appeals to council under decisions. We also have included, which is new, if you keep scrolling through and move into the appendices, there is a requirement for properties that are within 100 meters of the service to connect. And so we've included maps to just provide more clarity around that. So Appendix B are the municipal sewer area maps. And we've done the work required to include those. And if you keep scrolling through the document, Appendix C, we're going to park there for a little while. One of the things that the Director of Development and Director of Public Works and the Director of Finance have chatted about and engaged on several instances since the 2005 bylaw was approved was as we've had development in the municipality or buildings have changed their use, exactly where do they fit in the fee schedule in terms of how many units do you charge them? So you will see, for example, we've included modular single family dwelling, and that's just to provide clarity around for the development office when we have those kinds of properties built or moved to the municipality. It just provides clarity that that's where that fits, and you'll see that we're using the same units for modular single family dwelling as we are for a built single family dwelling, as well as a mobile or mini home. In our 2005 edition of this bylaw, for some reason, aesthetics and barber shops in a private home were not being charged the same amount as a doctor or a dentist office in a private home. And the charges relate to usage as well as the capital component. And so the notion that an aesthetics operation or barbershop would probably have fairly high volume water, we're recommending that those operations pay at least the same amount as a doctor's or dentist office, who would also use a fair amount of water for cleaning and hygiene. Under apartments, we've added a residential multiplex, and we've added a unit charge per domicile unit. So we know that we're going to see big changes in the diversity of housing stock in the municipality and all kinds of different approaches. So trying to be forward thinking, we wanted to provide a mechanism for calculating the charges for that type of housing unit in advance. Under senior citizens, we've just updated the language to read multiplex as opposed to home and to qualify that that's a per unit charge. Under hospitals and homes with medical care facilities without laundry, Greg had shared with council in our last budget exercise, that he's consistently analyzing the data, the cost versus the revenue on this service. And, again, the bylaw that's currently in force is from 2005. And so we're recommending that we increase the charge from 0.2 on facilities per bed, as well as laundry facilities. We're recommending that we increase it from 0.3 to 1.5. And it's just a reflection of the volume of material that's going into the system and does have associated expenses to treat. Continuing on down on page 22, we've included a category, hotels, motels that are converted into housing units per living unit. And again, that's a key piece of, the tapestry of solutions for housing in our community. And so we wanted to provide clarity around how this service would be employed and charged out if that were to happen. You'll see on page 23 that we're recommending we delete the tourist trailer park with hookup facilities. First of all, we don't have a facility like that that's hooked into our system. And, moving forward, there is a clause that we're recommending at the bottom that gives the municipality the right to require a connection be metered as opposed to a per unit charge. There are lots of operations like car washes and laundromats where you may want to meter it. So it's exact. There's no requirement for anybody to be counting washing machines or wash bays or anything like that. And so, if we have a tourist trailer park or campground constructed that wants to hook up, then the engineer can recommend that we meter that service as opposed to try to figure out a unit of measure to charge out for the service. One area where we've had, I think a significant change is around, there are some buildings in the municipality that are no longer being used the way they were originally used when they were constructed. And, a school is a great example. So a school would have a lot of washroom facilities in it. And the way we charged for schools had a very intentional approach to it. When a school is no longer being used that way and it's being used, let's say, for example, by a community group or a fraternal organization, they will not have the same volume of people in the buildings consistently every day. They may not even have the same number of washroom facilities. So we were looking for a mechanism based on experience to provide an appropriate method for charging for services in those types of buildings. So we're recommending that for the first bathroom in a building owned by a fraternal organization that they pay 1 unit. And for each additional bathroom, they pay 0.3. And then we're specifying or being clear that fire halls and fire stations, we're not going to charge them for the service. It's going to be a 0 unit. You'll see that we are recommending that we remove laundromats from this schedule and we're metering them down below. And then we're just cleaning up the whole service station and gas bar section to make it consistent with other types of commercial operations that for the first washroom, we'll charge 1 unit, and for each additional washroom, it'll be another half unit. And then under the bylaw, if there is a piece of land that is along where our service is, but it's not developed, it's vacant land, there's still a capital component to having the service available and to offsetting the cost of installing that service and doing major upgrades. And so we've always had a charge for vacant land. And again, based on Greg's analysis of revenues and expenses since 2005, we're recommending that we increase that from 0.1 to 0.3. I'm sure I've missed something. So maybe, Mr. Chair, if I've missed something important that Greg and Darlene want to add, maybe we should do that before we open the floor, if that's okay with you.
Greg, Darlene, have anything to add?
No, I think you got it all, Victoria.
No, I think it was a really good exercise. It hadn't been looked at since what, at least 2005, and there was a lot of redundancies in there. There was some inconsistent language that we cleaned up and improved on the definitions a bit. And we also, as you can see, we updated the unit values a little bit and and tried to bring that into a more modern era with the change in the language and how we describe some of the dwellings, some of the workplaces today. So I think it was a good project, a good exercise, and well overdue. And I think we're in a lot clearer shape than we were before when we're trying to apply that bylaw.
I do have one comment, Victoria, in regards to item 19.3. And it's highlighted there in yellow, and given 10 days to appeal to council. Should that not say 10 business days to appeal?
It can say whatever you want it to say. Darlene, I don't know if you want to share any commentary from the solicitor on that piece.
That's what the solicitor suggested. Those were his words. And so that's how I put it in there. So I'm not sure if he intended that to be business days or not.
Because if I'm not mistaken, any other thing, 10-day or time to appeal is usually 2 weeks. It depends if someone takes that literally. I'm just trying to make it absolutely clear that 10 days is 10 business days or what. I'm no solicitor, but if that was the language that was suggested, I would continue on with that.
Yeah, if I could, in my experience, it always does cause confusion. That one word, business days or calendar days, one or the other, I think could eliminate a lot of confusion. I've seen it happen many times in the past.
I would make that a recommended change then personally. Trevor, I'll turn over the floor to you.
Yeah, I think it's a recommended change to calendar days. That clarifies things. I think business days are confusing because there's government business days, and we've got COVID now. So if the office is closed down for whatever reason, if there's a storm, I don't know, but I think the calendar days is the better of them, or clear days. Sometimes they also use clear days. So that's every day but the day that the issue is dealt with. So 10 days after that. So 100% days. But perhaps we could get some clarification around that with the solicitor before it comes to council for approval. But I mean, that's just my thinking. The insertion of calendar would be useful.
The next one I seen with her hand up would, I'll turn the floor over to Victoria, then Nick, you're next on the docket.
So I just want to respond to the deputy warden, Mr. Chair. So through you to council, I think, the intent of adding that in 19.3 is to provide time for people to respond. And, hearing the different perspectives in terms of how to interpret clear days, business days, calendar days, COVID days, if council's trying to give adequate time for a person to appeal, maybe we just simply say 14 calendar days, and that's almost impossible to argue with.
Yeah, I agree. I said business days because I thought 2 weeks was a better time frame. So if 14 calendar days makes the most sense, because if you get 10 days on a Thursday or Friday, it could only really give you one business week to respond.
Yep, and we can even say, 14 calendar days, not including the day the notice is served. Like, we can even be that specific if you'd like.
Perfect.
Deputy Warden.
Yeah, so I'll move that the municipality of District of Yarmouth forward to regular council for approval sewer bylaw S-084-22 is circulated with the understanding that there may be some minor changes forthcoming to the actual council meeting.
Okay, a motion on the floor, second by Councillor Patty Durkee. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 9.2, hospitality policy H-068-22. Madam CEO, you have the floor.
So Darlene brought it to my attention that inside this policy, there's a requirement for review after the election, and we did miss it last January. And so it should have been reviewed. Thanks, Greg. Thanks for everything. It should have been reviewed last January. So I'm bringing it before you I did go over it. You know, the point is to make sure it's still compliant with the requirements for what you're allowed to spend money on, how it's approved and all that. So the only thing that I would recommend council take a look at brushing up or improving is in section 6.1. I'm recommending that council approve a councillor's request and the CAO approve a staff request.
Councillor Hilton.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm new to this. I never seen it previous to this. I guess my only question is there a limit to that? Does there need to be a limit to that? You know, so all previous requests were approved by council, and now, you know, not that I have an issue with any request that you may or may not approve, but the amount might be the only.
Actually, Councillor Hilton, it was the other way around, which is what gave me cause for concern. The CAO was the one doing all the approving. So, you know, I mean, any spending outside your approved budget has to be approved by council anyway.
Okay.
So, you know, if there's a PR budget or something like that, and there's a requirement or a request to leverage this policy, it kind of has to happen within the framework of your approved budget, or council would have to rejig their budget and redo their finances to allow whatever the ask might be. You know, I've never seen anybody use this. Now, I know we've had COVID for 2 years, but I've never seen anybody use this since I've been here.
Deputy Warden.
Yeah, I'll move that the municipality district of Yarmouth forward hospitality policy H-068-22 to regular council for approval.
Okay, motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Nick Hilton. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 9.3, terms of reference for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee. You all have that in front of you in your packages. What is the wishes of council? Councillor Hurlbert?
Do we want, Matt, through you to Madam CAO, do we like Madam CAO to go through this? It is a brand new policy for us, just, you know, to kind of, I know that I've read it, but, you know, for the public, and just to kind of get a feel for what it, I mean, maybe we don't have to go through it word for word, but just a general overview that might be helpful.
Sure. So yeah, I'm happy to do that for council. So I guess what I want to say right out of the gate is that Darlene and her office have done an incredible amount of work helping the municipality attend to our desire to do better in this area. And when council made the motion to include an advisory committee as part of the program, I don't know about Darlene, but for me, the fog on how to approach this work and how to do it well really lifted. First of all, we had a couple of great examples of municipalities that are approaching this part of the strategy through this mechanism. So I just want to publicly thank Darlene for her work on this. So what we've done is we've provided council with 2 documents to consider. One is a policy statement, which formalizes the motion and gives the authority to create the proposed standing advisory committee to council. So in that document, there's the purpose statement, which talks about the importance of doing better with respect to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and trying to do all we can do to take our blinders off and to open our ears, and to create a diverse, equitable, and inclusive municipality of Yarmouth. So we make some policy statements around the fact that diversity is more than race, ability, sexual orientation, language, gender, or any other descriptive category. You know, diversity means understanding, utilizing different views and ideas and life experiences, skills, and knowledge. And if this is a core value, then we're laying the foundation for the municipality to get to where it aspires to be and to better represent the communities we serve. And so, it's important to do that by addressing systematic pieces in our practices and our services, our policies, our procedures, and our programs. And that helps us capitalize on our strengths and our talents of the collective that makes up the municipality. So we have a section on definitions that are technical definitions that Darlene has brought forward from the field for your consideration. So we've provided a definition for discrimination, diversity, equity, inclusion, and systematic discrimination. And then we've laid the foundation for council to create and authorize its standing committee on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have included a couple of pieces around there, high-level pieces around, what's the structure of the committee, the fact that the committee should have terms of reference approved by council. And we've also included in the draft policy a review requirement, just to make sure we're keeping brushed up. And then following the policy document are the draft terms of reference. And we've pulled these together from a number of places. Darlene may want to speak to kind of the different channels that she used to help pull this together. I know that we've looked at HRM, we've looked at Queens County. I think she's looked at maybe Alberta and BC as well a little bit. Don't know if maybe you just want to talk a little bit about that, Darlene, before we get into the material.
Sure. Yeah, Queens and HRM both have done a lot of work on this. And so they had really good information for me to go to, and they were quite helpful. They have a staff person in Queens that's doing this work, and he was quite helpful. HRM has a whole office that's doing it. Obviously, it's a much bigger place. And yeah, as Victoria said, I got some information from the Association of Urban Municipalities in Alberta. I think they had a really good policies and programs in place. So it was good to get information from other units. It was easy to find it, and yeah, I pulled from different places and put together what I thought you might want to see.
Councillor Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I read through this very carefully, and I have to say that I was really pleased, and I want to say thank you to Darlene and Victoria for the amount of work, because I know it did require a lot of work to put this together. My only concern is in the terms of reference, that the chairperson be a member of council. And I'm not quite sure that serves us best. And the reason being is, if you look at our council, we're not very diverse. And so, in fact, we're not diverse at all. And so I'm thinking that a community member or someone from a more diverse culture or background might be best served as the chairperson for that committee. But I'm certainly willing to listen to people's thoughts on that matter.
Comments, questions? Councillor Hilton?
Yeah, I tend to agree, and not necessarily for. I know in other committees, it makes the most sense for a member of council to be the chair. This one, you want engaged individuals. Like Patty said, we're not very diverse at the table. We are and we aren't. But when I go to that committee, I want someone driving that for me. And I'm not sure if anyone at this table, can see themselves as the chair of that committee. That would be my question to council. Do you envision yourself moving that portfolio of sorts forward in the way that it should be? And do you have a clear direction for yourself and how you would do that? Because as much as I've been an advocate for a few of the flag policy and this policy, I don't have a roadmap for that and don't feel qualified to be the one sitting in the chair. But at the same time, I know that we as a council want proper representation on all our committees so that it gets brought back to council. How we do that, I'm just looking for a little bit more for this specific committee a little bit more input on how we can properly do that, but yet recognize the importance of the work that committee's doing.
Mr. Chair, I could answer that question before you go to Councillor Cushing, because I think he has his hand up, if that's okay with everybody.
Yep, go ahead.
So just thinking as we're sharing and we're talking about ways to approach this. So, you know, if we're more flexible, if council wants to be more flexible in terms of making sure that there's a chair and a vice chair and everybody knows who it is and everybody knows how that's chosen and all that. To speak to Councillor Hilton's input, what we could do in the terms of references is, you know, actually stipulate that the this advisory committee present to council twice a year, you know, and then that way, in addition to whoever the council appointment is reporting at the regular monthly council meeting, there's also kind of, you know, intentionality around a different level of information sharing. I'm not sure if that's appealing to council.
I'm not sure if it addresses the issue I have with, you know, if I'm the chair, how do I, you know, do I fully feel comfortable being, you know, leading the charge in Modi on equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I really do put that to you, all the other councillors. Would you feel comfortable? I know that we asked for this committee. I want to fully support this committee. And for me to do that, this is actually one of the questions I have to properly support the work that this committee would do.
I have Councillor Cushing and Deputy Warden.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. We talk about being a diverse council, and some of us don't think that we are, but we have men, we have women, we have seniors, we have a person with a disability. I think we are on a road to somewhat having a diverse council. You know, that's my opinion. So to say that we're completely not diverse, I don't think is quite fair and honest. That's my personal opinion.
Deputy Warden.
Yeah, I hear both sides of the conversation, certainly. Having said that, the chair's function in terms of governance is to certainly just chair. It's not to necessarily lead the charge, just like our warden's function isn't to necessarily lead the municipality in that way. It's to listen to people's ideas. So really, the most important, I guess, the most important, what am I looking for? Sorry, the most important facet of a chair's function is to hear the committee's diverse views. So having said that, I would just add that comment. Again, we can do it a multiple number of ways. I don't know if both have strengths and weaknesses, and you know, if it were a community member, that would be fine by me. Again, that's be the complexity in asking who's diverse enough to be in the chair and who's driving it. And we do have in the policy, I did notice that you know, there are lots of different ways to be diverse. So again, we'd have to, if we do that, we'd have to put some thought about, you know, the characteristics that the chair would have. And I'm not certain we've done that adequate this time to move in that direction. So we'd have to back this up a little bit, I think, and think about what the chair might be like if we were to go the another way. But I'm fine going either way, provided we do it well.
Is there any more discussion? I do have one thing to say, and it's in regards to a comment that was made about the diversity of council that's sitting around here. I try not to look at people in the lens that we're all the same skin color. We don't know everyone's complete backgrounds, their heritage. It means more than skin color. The old saying goes, don't judge a book by its cover. And I don't want to be in that. And I think that that's also indications of systemic discrimination, which is in this policy. It's in item 2.5. So I just caution counselors to be very careful of that. What we're trying to do with this committee is, with this policy and committee, is to try to curb that. And we're all leaders of the community, and I think we should follow by example, or lead by example, sorry. But I have no problem with the way that this is written. I do believe it's a good thing. It follows through with one of our strategic plans that our council had way back last year already. It's hard to believe it's been almost a year now. And I believe this is a good step. Is policy perfect? No, it's not. But however, we can come back and change policy at any time. Councillor Lauren Cushing, you had your hand up. Councillor Durkee?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is just one of the committees. It's an advisory committee. And I think it should, the chairperson should be chosen by the committee itself. Is my best feeling. I think about our Heritage Advisory Committee, and it is a community member, and my preference would be to go in the direction of, once the committee is formed, that the chairperson be chosen from the committee itself, and not requiring it to be council members. That's just my opinion.
Deputy Warden, then Councillor Hurlbert.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty good suggestion. That seems like a reasonable way forward, and that eliminates the issue of having to, articulate, who the chair might be. So I think that's a good idea that Councillor Durkee's brought forward. And again, I guess the C.O. Brooks would have to maybe put her mind to how the committee would then report back through to council, but there are certainly mechanisms and other with our other committees that's done. So I'm all right with that. So perhaps at this juncture, we need to, Mr. Chair, have a way to move forward, and I mean, I'm okay with making those changes. I guess it's just maybe having a motion, to vote on, giving some direction to our CEO to make the changes. I guess that Councillor Durkee's articulated.
Okay, Councillor Hurlbert and Councillor Hilton. And before I open up the floor to you, Councillor Hurlbert, if there is a motion made, I want you to specify if we want to return this back to staff, or if you want to recommend to regular council for the staff changes. So just keep that in mind when if there is a motion that comes out of this. So Councillor Hurlbert.
Sure, I would like to, and this is where the rules of order, I would like to make the motion that we recommend to council the approval of the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy D-045-22 with the amendment to the clause in the terms of reference regarding the chair.
Yep. Motion on the floor, and seconded by Councillor Patty Durkee. Is there any discussion on that motion? Councillor Nick Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm very happy to see that change. And I know it's hard to balance, procedural issues and what we necessarily might feel is right in this case. And having the vice chair maybe as a counselor might be the conduit to getting proper information back to the committee. But the chair itself should be, in this case specifically, a vote by the committee members, because you are the face of that committee. And we've seen what happened in provincial politics when they appointed the Minister of African Affairs, and although probably rightfully qualified, sometimes perception is important, not just perception, but just the intent. So yeah, I'm fully in support of the change and to move it to regular council for approval, because it was great work by staff and a positive move forward. Thank you.
Any more discussion? Madam CEO?
Chair, so yeah, I had put my hand up and Councillor Hilton went exactly where my brain was. So just to clarify then that, so the vice chair will remain to be required to be a member of council. And one great thing about that approach is that, you know, the role of the vice chair is to step in often in short notice to help support the work and provide continuity. And you all have experience and are developing more experience around, you know, what do I got to do to get my, you know, get everything organized so that we can keep going and keep moving forward. So, you know, it's an important role from that perspective, but also, you know, it's likely that the committee will have people serve on it who are passionate about what we're doing. They may not be so familiar with how, and you can mentor and build relationship. And so, yeah, so I was asking for that clarity. And so I'm seeing heads nodding. So that part will remain the same and we'll just amend the part on the chair. Is that correct? Yeah, okay.
Councillor Durkee, you raising your hand?
I am. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, and I just want to clarify that the chairperson may indeed be a counselor. We don't know that, but this just leaves the door open, and I appreciate that.
All right, if there's no more discussion on that, I have one quick comment. I don't know if any of you remember, but in our previous council, we had actually our planning advisory committee was a vice chair, sorry, our vice chair of the planning advisory committee was a community member. I think this is a change for the good, because it also gives people experience in regards to maybe they want experience just to run meetings, and maybe it's something that they're going to aspire to possibly, with a little bit of an offshoot of this committee, maybe get people with a more diverse background, as was mentioned before, to run for council. Give them the confidence of handling a meeting like that, because it's not as easy as some people think it looks. I stumble my way through it quite a bit. So yeah, if there's no more discussion on the motion, I'd entertain the question. Question being called on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, council. Item 9.4, FOIPOP training. This is brought forward as an agenda item by Councillor Sherry Hurlbert. You have the floor.
Thank you. And when I saw that on the agenda, I probably should have reached out to say, what was my actual ask on that when we had the discussion? So I apologize, but I think if memory serves me correct, and please feel free to correct me if my memory is not right, just to have some parameters around what is FOIPOPable, you know, how we go about it, is what we take, you know, the notes we take in meetings, are those FOIPOPable? You know, we all think that, you know, from past experience, that we know that things that like emails and correspondence and, you know, telephone conversations and text messaging, but, you know, just maybe some clarity for us as counselors, you know, is my personal cell phone, you know, which I shouldn't be using for council work, you know, versus my, you know, my Modi phone. And I don't think the training has to be long. I think it's just, you know, some guidelines around and some refresher around what we should and shouldn't be doing and what our obligations are as a council and a municipality.
Aha, I do remember your email, Councillor Hurlbert. That was sent way back in November the 3rd of 2021. And I said that we would add it to agenda. So I think your memory is a heck of a lot better than mine was. And I think the CEO has an answer for you.
Yep, so I'll just kind of give council an update on where we're at with that, knowing that it was an ask, and I do think that we have touched on it in between the original email and now. But so Darlene, first of all, I just want to remind council that Darlene is our FOIPOP administrator. So when the municipality receives requests for information, Darlene is our administrator. She administers the requirements of the Act. She works with the solicitor in terms of getting together the documentation and determining, you know, if there are redactions, what are they, and all that stuff. So, and what's great about that is she's also our HR manager. And so maybe Darlene, you just want to share a little bit about the facilitator that you've identified and kind of some of the themes that we might be covering. We do have some plans in the works for you and senior staff.
There's a couple of options depending on which way you want to go. There is a consultant who used to be the privacy commissioner for the province, and he does training. He's given me a proposal for a 3-hour training that would go through some case studies, that sort of thing, and allow time for discussion and questions. And the other option, if you don't want to go with that long, it would be to do something with the solicitor.
All right, Deputy Warden, I seen you had your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm betwixt and between in terms of those suggestions because it is, as far as a council governance function, it is kind of detail driven. It's subject to FOIPOP Act, Nova Scotia, and there's an administrator, as you've spoken about our administrators, Darlene at each organization. And it does often get into the specifics of individual requests, third parties, all these types of things that are very, very interesting. But I would think that, and we can do a lot of training around a lot of things, but I would think that you know, that the staff would want additional training to, you know, kind of over and above what a counselor would. We're here to make sort of 40,000 feet type decisions in most cases. So I think the option of the 3-hour training is probably one that I, as a counselor, I mean, while it may be useful, probably is too much in a sense. So I would be in favor of the other option for those reasons.
Any more discussion? Councilor Durkee?
I think I agree with Deputy Warden Cunningham. I mean, I do want to know, I think it's really valuable. And so I thank Councillor Herbert for bringing it up, but I'm not sure I want to spend 3 hours on FOIPOP training. Yeah. And so I think short and sweet would be, and give us the basics because Darlene administers it. So we don't have to do that. Thank you very much. But just some basics would be very valuable to us.
Councilor Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Darlene, for the work you've done already. I would agree with the other councillors who've spoken. High level for me, you know, broad. Here's what I need to know as a councillor, and I would trust that, you know, Darlene in her capacity as, you know, the FOIPOP administrator is doing everything that needs to be done. And if after, you know, the brief overview, we feel we need more, then, you know, we go down that route in the future. But yeah, I thank you for the work that you've done.
Okay. So I'm assuming this would be a question to the CEO and or Darlene that this is work that's ongoing, and now that you have direction from council that you'll be coming forward with something for us. Yeah, I see a head nod. Councilor Hurlbert, is that what you expected out of this agenda item? Thumbs up. All right. Is there any more discussion on this item? I didn't want to say I personally prefer the 3-hour session because I like the scenario sort of things, because there's always that what if in the back of my mind, but sometimes too much information is too much. And as the deputy wardens had stated, the 40,000 foot view is the one really that we should be taking. We have staff that does a tremendous job at keeping that moving forward. All right, item number 9.5. I remember this very well, about 5 years ago. Boundary review. Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it's that time again, every 8 years, every municipality in Nova Scotia has to formally undertake a boundary, sorry, Councillor Hilton.
No. Just next.
Okay. Yep. Has to undertake a boundary review and they have to file with the UARB what the results were of the work that they did, and the UARB says yes or no to the council. So I guess how far I wanted to go with this today was, first of all, to make you aware we have to do it. I've done some work looking at what we did in 2014. Our planner led the work internally. We didn't hire an external consultant, and there were a few shifts in order to stay within the tolerance for a district size and a population in a district, and some things like that that were cleaned up. So I've taken a look at it. I guess what I wanted to share with council is I'll develop an issue report and bring it to council on the 26th, unless I get some kind of direction today. But basically, you have to make a couple of decisions in order to file your report with UARB. And both decisions need to be informed by a demonstrated public engagement process. The first decision council has to make is the size and form of your council. And then once you've made a decision on that, you need to make a decision on your polling districts. And so both of those decisions need to be informed by some level of public engagement. And then we put it together with all the technical information and we file it. And we have to do it this year. It has to be done and filed. I think we should be submitting sometime in November or December our entire package. So that's, as the deputy warden just said, that's the 40,000 foot piece. If there's something I need to know today, then it would be good to know it today as I develop the issue report to bring before you later this month.
I will have a question before I open up the floor, Victoria. And that's in regards to, we've had possible discussions. We received an email, and there's also a motion on the Municipality District of Yarmouth books in regards to consolidation. There's also been some talk, and I heard it a little bit, even though I was acclaimed, I did hear a little bit about having a mayor go into a mayoral system. When would that come into this report? Because there's some things that we really haven't nailed down yet. We've only been elected for a year, and I know this is coming up. How would that work into this?
So I've asked myself those same questions. So the work has to be done. It's legislatively required. So we have to undertake a process of some sort. How we include considerations for possible consolidation, we would have to unpack that as we go along. And I guess it's almost like we actually have to do both things at the same time. Recognizing that because this boundary review is legislatively required. The other piece around a mayoral system, so a rural municipality or a district municipality in Nova Scotia can choose to move from a warden system to a mayor system whenever they want, as long as the decision is made, I think it's January prior to that next election. You're doing a boundary review. If you have an appetite to see what that looks like now's a good time to do it. For sure. The only thing is, if the municipality makes a decision to move that way, it can't go back. Once you move to that system of government, you can't come back to this system.
Yeah, see, the reason why I brought that up is because a suggestion was made to me that we still have 7 seats on council, 6 districts, and 1 mayor elected at large. That's something that's been brought up to me by more than one person, actually. And I had mentioned it to a couple councillors, I do believe. So if we're going to go that way, this would be the time to do that, correct? Because
I wouldn't say this is the only time. Yeah, I wouldn't say this is the only time to do it, but it is a time and a process that could provide for those considerations.
But say, for example, this is and I apologize, council, for holding up the floor here, but I do have the privilege of having 5 minutes like the rest of you. So where was I? If we did decide that we're going to keep it status quo and keep the population limits in each district as they currently are within plus or minus 10%, we could go this route. But after we have to make a submission, if council decided after the fact that we wanted to change the mayoral system, we could.
You can, but you have to go through almost exactly the same exercise again, because you have to be filing with UARB for your new polling districts and all that.
Yeah, and if I do remember correctly, I was speaking to someone in Halifax with municipal affairs, I believe, and I think we had in February of that election year to make the change if we did decide to go that route, correct?
I would have to double check the MTA. It's early in the year of the election.
Yeah.
So
okay.
for 2024, it would be very early in that year that the decision would have to be done. And I think it's largely because of the work that's required to get ready for the election. You need time to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, this is something that's been on my mind the minute I seen this on the docket. It's been on my mind before because I've had people mention it. So I do believe I seen Councillor Hilton and Deputy Warden with their hands up. So Councillor Hilton and then
Thank you.
Councillor Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And for me, I think it creates a lot of confusion because we already have motions on the floor to look at what consolidation looks like. And until they were, I'm perfectly comfortable moving forward with the way things are until that's been looked at. And once that's looked at, if we choose to stay within, the municipality and district of Yarmouth the way it is, then we can have that second conversation. But if we bring both conversations to the table right now, I think it would be a little chaotic. So, I would like to move forward with the review the way it is now.
Deputy Warden, then Councillor.
Yeah, I would agree with Councillor Hilton in that there's potential for quite a bit of confusion between the issue of a mayoral system and any potential consolidation talks. But having said that, I hear the warden's comment that he's heard a number of people talk about that. And again, we don't know if consolidation will happen or not. That's a process that will negotiate with one or more other units, adjacent units, to find out if we can come to some kind of arrangement where we could agree to consolidate. So that's a lengthy process. But having said that, it may be useful as part of this process and part of the public consultation process that's I guess necessary under the Act and under the process that we look at the boundary review is could we have a PR firm survey our public, asking them that question, like, is there an appetite at this time to go to a mayoral system, as opposed to what we have now where the wardens elected from council. So that I'd like a little bit of data on that. And maybe we could even put in, and I guess this would be for our professional help to help us with. I think it would be useful to do a quick survey, and if there's a real appetite for it, even though we are entertaining the possibility of a consolidation, potentially entertaining it, we're going to talk to our adjoining municipal units. That's my idea. And I think that will clarify it for staff and council and the community. So perhaps Mr. Warden, to either you or through you to the CEO, what do others think of that idea?
I've heard two opinions so far, and just to answer your question, Deputy Warden, I'm really unsure where to go with this. I did hear Councillor Hilton say just to leave it the way it is right now because we have to have this completed by, but that's not to close the door, not saying that we could put out some type of survey or even in a newsletter in the spring saying to go to this Google poll and ask that question. That may be as simple as that. I don't know if we need to go to a firm. But we're just trying, I guess the CEO right now is just trying to get consensus on seeing which way that we want to go. Councillor Durkee, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we're talking about a number of different issues here. So to start with, this boundary review needs to be done in 2022. And I think any talk of consolidation or wherever we go with that is going to take a lot longer process. So I think we still have to do our boundary review as requested is the first thing. And then the second, if we want to do look at having a mayor. I think that's something completely separate at the moment. But what I do need to do is get into the weeds just a minute for our CAO. And that is, while you're looking at the boundaries, there is a very jagged boundary through the McCormick Road, Rodney Road area. And I think it would be really nice to streamline where that border is for our residents, because it is kind of confusing. So I just wanted to point that little specific piece for District 4. Thank you.
Councillor Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would agree with the councillors who have, said that we understand that this has to be done, before the end of 2022. And I would agree that, the talk of consolidation is a huge topic that we haven't even begun. And I personally would just like to see, the issue report that Madam CAO, mentioned, bringing that forward to council, when she, mentioned that it would be brought forward, and then take it from there. I think that I wouldn't want to confuse the public on what we're doing, and, to be clear that this is a boundary review and this is why we have to do it versus a mayoral system versus consolidation, I think just gets too clunky. And knowing that consolidation could take a lengthy amount of time and this needs to be done this year. And we also have to think about COVID and how do you do public engagement when we can't gather, knowing that we have summer and then you're into fall. I would just like to see the issue report and move forward with, the boundary as its own topic.
Deputy Warden.
Yeah, and while it's a requirement to do a boundary review every 8 years, there's nothing saying, is there anything saying, Madam CEO, that we couldn't ask that question, let's say 2 years henceforth, and do a boundary review and say that we may consider a mayoral system 2 years henceforth?
Right, so I think I want to answer your question in two parts, Deputy Warden. So just for clarity, the topic is boundary review, but included in the boundary review are two decisions that are required. So size and composition of council must be decided and filed with the UARB, and then the boundaries, right? So there are two pieces that have to happen. And, I think I'm hearing consistency is important for sure. Once this exercise is done, to the Deputy Warden's question, if 2 years from now, or even, in December of 2023, 2 years from now, yes. So 2 years from now, if council's appetite has changed because your landscape has changed, then we will, council does have a deadline prior to any municipal election for making that change. But outside of that, you can have that conversation whenever you want to about what that could look like.
So I've heard, Madam CEO, do you need a motion from council or just direction at this time? Because I heard pretty well the consensus so far. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see Lauren. Lauren, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. You missed me a couple of times, but that's all right. I think, I listen a lot. And what our CAO has brought forward to us, I think that's an issue that we have to address first. And then once we address that, then we should move on to the memorial, the other system, and then consolidation after that, or whatever follows. But I think we got to focus on what we're going to be doing right now. Let's get that out of sight. It probably won't take long to do, so let's just get it done. That way we can move on to the other steps that we're considering. Thank you.
All right, Trevor, were you next?
Yeah, so I'll move that Council Director CEO to undertake the boundary review with the province and have the public meeting and hear from them. And then certainly we can make decisions around those two questions.
So there's a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushing. Any discussion on that motion? I see no discussion, but I do have a question. Madam CAO, do you have clear direction from that motion that's currently on the floor?
I do, yep, I do. So I guess maybe I'll share with council, you know, if the motion passes, I'll still file the issue report with you, which will include kind of a map of how it would look like and how it would unfold. And, you know, I'd be relying probably on our planning staff and our development staff and our GIS staff. We would basically replicate the process that was done in 2014. So just as long as everybody's kind of, if we're all on the same page, then I'm good.
All right, and I do believe we're all on. Councillor Nick Hilton.
So just a question, does that mean, so the number of councillors and the number of districts, you know, does that mean you're applying right now just to leave things the way they are, or you won't know that until after this is done? Because I'm fine with making the recommendation that it go as status quo, because I have no interest in changing it until we know the answers to our other questions.
Right. So what would happen, Councillor Hilton, through the chair to you, is that, you know, if that's kind of where council's at, we have to take that to your public and we have to say, you know, this is kind of where we're at. We have to receive their feedback. You don't necessarily have to accept their feedback, but we have to accept, you know, have to receive the feedback. And if council doesn't decide to move in the way the public has asked you to move, you have to defend it to the UARB. So I just want everybody to be mindful of that. And that's why the public engagement is so critical.
Madam CEO, I have a question in that regard. Was that what happened to a neighbor municipal unit in regards to the boundary review?
I'm not sure if it was a neighboring unit. I can think of a unit in the Tri-Counties who in the last boundary review, kind of council was fairly aligned on what they thought the future looked like. They did their public engagement and they weren't on the same page with their public. And originally the council was just going to file with the UARB, not accepting the public feedback. But I think at the end of the day, they decided to listen to their public, and what they filed with the UARB was what the public told them they were looking for.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, is there any more discussion on the motion on the floor?
Question.
Yep. Question being called on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. And I apologize, Councillor Cushing. I don't know why I don't see your hand going up. Maybe you should flash a card or something.
That's all right. It's all right, Mr. Ward. Don't worry over it.
Zoom meetings are, I always thought meeting in our council chambers was hard with the reflection of the barriers that we have up for COVID protection, but it's actually quite a bit harder to try to catch everyone when you're looking on a screen. All right, item number 9.6, health benefits for councillor. Councillor Durkee, you had asked to have this on the agenda. I open the floor up to you.
I did. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know there are those of us who work for other organizations who have already have health benefits, but then there's some of us who do not. And I know. Yeah, and you know, we do work hard and we spend a lot of time doing council work, and I'm just wondering if it's something that we could pursue looking into. I'm not saying we have to do it, but just wondering what it would cost and if that's a possibility, and do other other councillors have benefits in other areas. And so that's just kind of throwing that out there for discussion. And I'm not saying that one person should have more than, you know, the other. If some get help, some sign up for health benefits and some may not, but then again, they're paying somewhere else. So just wondering what councillors' thoughts are on that matter.
Well, I'll start. I have no problem with looking into seeing, number one, what other councils do. I know some councils across the province have pension plans, which we do not. And I do
Right.
know that, I do believe there is one, on a little bit of research, when you first brought this up to me, there's one council, I do believe, in Nova Scotia that does have health benefits. I don't know the costs. I'd be interested to know the costs. Some people are, I'll give you a fine example of myself. One of the main reasons why I still work is to maintain my health benefits, because as we all know, I've had some health issues in the past, and it actually reared its ugly head here during the start of this meeting, that I had to leave for a meeting. I don't know what that would cost, or even if a service provider would allow that, where I don't know how we'd be classed in that regard as well. But those questions, I'm sure staff can go back and ask around. Number one, what there is around the province, and number two, what would it cost, and then come back with that information, and then we can make an informed decision if it's way too expensive. No, if it's fairly cheap, and some counselors want to start off with that, yeah, maybe. But I don't have no problem with gathering information first. So I'm going to cede the floor, and I'll move over to Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham, then Councillor Nick Hilton afterwards, is the two I see.
Yeah, and as you've indicated, Warden Cunningham, I don't have any issue with collecting the information, and it may be better to collect, what councillors get around the province in terms of benefit beyond their stipend. Having said that, all these programs do come with a cost, whether it's a pension benefit or medical benefit, those types of things, and I'm always wary of the cost. Those are all important considerations. Is the attractiveness of the role of counselor to people considering in the future. But having said that, I don't have any issue with looking at the information and discussing it. That's what we're here to do. But again, I would be cautious about extending the benefits, too much, because that does put pressure on the purse.
Councillor Nick Hilton, then Councillor Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, personally, I work at the hospital. I get the benefits of personal health, a health plan and a pension. And I would never take that away from anyone if they had the ability to obtain, especially medical benefits. I use them on a weekly basis, and I've been there for 18 years, and I get, take them for granted. So I know that it puts pressure on the purse strings a little bit, but hopefully we can find a way to make that work for everyone, because we're a year in, and I'll tell you that this does weigh on your health quite a bit, your mental health, your physical health, everything. So I'm sure some in the community would have questions about it, but I'd have no problem defending it. So I'm not sure what that looks like. I'm assuming our municipal staff have health benefits. I would hope. Do we? I would hope. Yeah. And I don't know if the few counselors that may not can somehow fall into that category as well, maybe, hopefully. I think it's great. And that's a legacy you would leave behind for future councils as well. Just a little bit of peace of mind. So hopefully it's reasonable, and I'm definitely supportive of it.
Councillor Durkee.
Thank you. On that note, I think I'll make a motion then that we request staff to research benefits, medical and dental benefits for counselors. Yeah. Just so that we can and bring that information back. Thank you.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder?
John, I had a question there.
Yeah, she
I had
made
my
a
hand
motion. I seen your hand go up like this and I wasn't sure if it was going up to wave to me or not, but the motion was seconded by Counselor Nick Hilton. So Counselor Lauren Christian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I am one of those counselors who have no benefits. I pay everything for myself and it is expensive. No doubt about it. But I didn't become a counselor to get any benefits. I became a counselor to serve the people of my district and in the municipality, which I will continue to do. And I understand where Councilor Durkee is coming from, and I appreciate it, but I won't be having much discussion on this because I don't feel that it's my place here to spend taxpayers' money on to benefit me. Thank you.
Counselor Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I have a different outlook on it. I do believe, as a healthcare professional, that when your job affects your health, that your job should help take care of that as well. And, finding that balance between finances and healthcare is important, and making sure that when that's conveyed to the public, that they know that as well. So I'm supportive of finding out the numbers and then we can go from there. So still seconding the motion.
Is there any more discussion on the motion? I would be in favor of it, just out of curiosity to see the numbers. There's going to be no decision made whether we move forward with it or not. It's just an information gathering motion at this time. So I'm certainly in support of that at least. If there's no more discussion on that motion, I'd entertain a question. Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you,
Thank
Council.
you. Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion to go into camera. Moved by Councilor Hurlbert, seconded by Councilor Nick Hilton. Motion on the floor to go into camera. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. I'm also, now that we're in camera, I'm recommending that we take a 5.
There you go. But we're still live.